Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances of the Shishir Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to our morning Bhagavatam class. This morning we continue with Srimad Bhagavatam. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 4, verses 29 and 30. We're covering 2 verses today. And the chapter is entitled The Internal Reasons for the Appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the class will be given by His Grace Pariksit Prabhu from ISKCON Harrisburg. Without further delay, we'll go right into the class. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Vivadadari Gopi Janavallabha Vivadadari Yashodanandana Vajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vajajanaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Vivadadhari Yashodanandana Vajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vajajanaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Nitai Gora Chandra Gora Hari Jaya Nitai Gora Chandra Gora Hari Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Haribo Nitai Gora Haribo Nitai Gora Haribo Nitai Gora Haribo Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahasa Parivajikacharya Stotra Satyasi Srimadis Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahasa Parivajikacharya Stotra Satyasi Srimad Divine Grace Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री द्वैत गदाधर शिवाचार्य गौर भक्तवृंद की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंज राधा कुंज गिरि गोवर्धन की जय वृंदावन धाम की जय मथुरा धाम की जय नवद्वीप धाम की जय जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय जगन्नाथ स्वामी की जय गंगा माई की जय जमुना माई की जय तुलसी देवी की जय भक्ति देवी की जय हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय समवेत भक्तवृंद की जय Nitai Gaura Premanande, Hari 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 Bo. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tere Swami Nityanamane. Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Sthatmani Sri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tere Nityanamane. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Good morning. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. So this morning's class will be from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 4, text 29 and 30. So we'll chant the 29 first, and anyone who feels so inclined can also chant after that. Mo Vishaye Gopi Ganara Upapati Bhave Yogamaya Karibeka Apana Prabhave Mo Vishaye Gopi Ganara Upapati Bhave Yogamaya Karibeka Apana Prabhave Mo Vishaye Gopi Ganara Upapati Bhave Yogamaya Karibera Apana Prabhave. Hare Krishna.
मो विषय गोपीगणेरा उपपति भावे योग माया करिबे का आपन प्रभावे
Mo Vishaye Gopi Ganera Upapati Pave Yoga Maya Kari Beka Apana Prabhave. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
मो विषय गोपी गणेर उपपति भावे योग माया करिबे का आपन प्रभावे. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
मो विषय गोपी गणेरा उपपति भावे योग माया करिबे का अपना प्रभावे. Hare Krishna.
Hi, Hare Krishna. Wonderful. Anyone else? All right, word for word. Mo Vishaye. On the subject of me, Gopi Ganera of the gopis, Upapati of a paramour, Bhave in the position, Yogamaya, Yogamaya, Lord Krishna's internal potency. Kariveka will make, Apana her own, Prabhave by the influence. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The influence of Yogamaya will inspire the gopis with the sentiment that I am their paramour. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Yogamaya is the name of the internal potency that makes the Lord forget himself and become an object of love for his pure devotee in different transcendental mellows. This Yogamaya potency creates a spiritual sentiment in the minds of the damsels of Raja, by which they think of Lord Krishna as their paramour. This sentiment is never to be compared to mundane illicit sexual love. It has nothing to do with sexual psychology, although the pure love of such devotees seems to be sexual. One should know for certain that nothing can exist in this cosmic manifestation that has no real counterpart in the spiritual field. All material manifestations are emanations of the transcendence. The erotic principles of amorous love reflected in mixed material values are perverted reflections of the reality of spirit. But one cannot understand the reality unless one is sufficiently educated in the spiritual science. Text 30. Amihana jani jahana jani gopigana yunhara Rupe Gune Dunhara Nitya Harimana. Word for word. Amiha, I. Najani shall not know. Taha, that. Najani will not know. Gopigana, the gopis. Dunhara of the two. Rupa Gune, the beauty and qualities. Dunhara of the two. Nitya, always. Hare, carry away. Mana, the minds. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Neither the gopis nor I shall notice this, for our minds will always be entranced by one another's beauty and qualities. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In the spiritual sky, the Vaikuntha planets are predominated by Narayan. His devotees have the same features as he does, and the exchange of devotion there is on the platform of reverence. But above all these Vaikuntha planets is Goloka, or Krishna Loka, where the original personality of Godhead, Krishna, fully manifests his pleasure potency in free loving affairs. Since the devotees in the material world know almost nothing about these affairs, the Lord desires to show these affairs to them. In Goloka Vrindavan, there is an exchange of love known as Parakiya Ras. It is something like the attraction of a married woman for a man other than a husband. In the material world, this sort of relationship is most abominable because it is a perverted reflection of the Parakiya Ras in the spiritual world, where it is the highest kind of loving affair. Such feelings between the devotee and the Lord are presented by the influence of Yogamaya. The Bhagavad Gita states that devotees of the highest grade are under the care of Daivi Maya or Yogamaya. Mahatmanas Tuvam Partha Devim Prakritim Ashrita. Bhagavad Gita chapter 9, text 13. Those who are actually great souls, Mahatmas, are fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, always engaged in the service of the Lord. They are under the care of Devi Prakriti or Yogamaya. Yogamaya creates a situation in which the devotee is prepared to transgress all regulative principles simply to love Krishna. A devotee naturally does not like to transgress the laws of reverence for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but by the influence of Yogamaya, he is prepared to do anything to love the Supreme Lord better. Under the spell of the material energy, one cannot at all appreciate the activities of Yogamaya. For a conditioned soul can hardly understand the pure reciprocation between the Lord and his devotee. But by executing devotional service under the regulated principles, one can become very highly elevated and then begin to appreciate the dealings of pure love under management of Yogamaya. In spiritual loving sentiment induced by the Yogamaya potency, both Lord Krishna and the damsels of Braj forget themselves in spiritual rapture. By the influence of such forgetfulness, the attractive beauty of the gopis plays a prominent part in the transcendental satisfaction of the Lord, who has nothing to do with mundane sex. Because the spiritual love of Godhead is above everything mundane, the gopis superficially seem to transgress the codes of mundane morality. This perpetually puzzles the mundane moralists. Therefore, Yogamaya acts to cover the Lord and his pastimes from the eyes of the mundaners, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita chapter 7, text 25, where the Lord says that he reserves the right of not being exposed to everyone. The acts of Yogamaya make it possible for the Lord and the gopis in loving ecstasy to sometimes meet and sometimes separate. These transcendental loving affairs of the Lord are unimaginable to empiricists involved in the impersonal feature of the absolute truth. Therefore, the Lord himself appears before the mundaners to bestow upon them the highest form of spiritual realization and also personally relish its essence. The Lord is so merciful that he himself descends to take the fallen souls back home to the kingdom of Godhead, where the erotic principles of Godhead are eternally relished in their real form, distinct from the perverted sexual love so much adored and indulged in by the fallen souls in their diseased condition. The reason the Lord displays the Rasa Lila is essentially to induce all the fallen souls to give up their diseased morality and religiosity and to attract them to the kingdom of God to enjoy the reality. A person who actually understands what the Rasa Lila is will certainly hate to indulge in mundane sex life. For the realized soul, hearing the Lord's Rasa Lila through the proper channel will result in complete abstinence from material sexual pleasure. Oma Ginati Virandasya, Gyana Gana Shalakaya. Chakshu Umritam Yena Tasma Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadati. Come. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Sya. Shri Rupa Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajiva. Sadvaitam Sabhadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Divam. Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Ladita Shri Vishakam Vitam Sya. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate. Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate. Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari. Vishabhanusate Devi Paramami Hari Priya. Vanchakalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhi Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Shari Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Paraya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namne. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirveshesha Sunyavadi Paschartyari Satarine. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gurati Namaha. Ananda Lilamaya Vigrahaya Himabhiri Vachapishandaraya Tasmi Mahaprema Raspadaya. Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste. Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste. Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste. Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste. Hare Krishna. So in text 29, the Lord says, the influence of Yogamaya will inspire the gopis with a sentiment that I am their paramour. So this is a very, very educative, very instructive text, both 29 and 30. It is very much linked to what mundaneness in the material world indulging, and they think that is the best way for them to enjoy themselves. What's called love between a boy and a girl and the feelings that it stirs up. Here, we're talking about what's here in the material world. That's what we're familiar with. Srila Prabhupada actually was asked about this. He replied, this is in the early times when he was in New York, and devotees, the hippies were coming around, and he was, some of them were getting more interested, some of them were curious. And so someone asked a question about love in the material world. He knew that Srila Prabhupada had told all the disciples that were coming, or those that were coming every day, they weren't initiated yet, that there were 4 regulatory principles that they'll have to adhere to and live by. And this guy, this particular devotee, later on he became devotee, he got initiated. He was living with a girlfriend. So they were still involved sexually, and he was also drinking. So that's two of the four regulative principles that he was not following. But he very much wanted to connect with Srila Prabhupada. He even mentioned, I want to be Srila Prabhupada's dog, whatever he tells me I want to do. But he was still stuck with these half of the regulative principles he was dealing with and half he couldn't. Little did he know that Srila Prabhupada could read minds, not necessary. This was necessary. So Srila Prabhupada asked him some questions pertaining to how he was dealing with his devotee life, or his devotee life. And I have to say devotee because he at that time was initiated. Some people were not, but he was. He had been initiated. He came to Srila Prabhupada, I'd like to be initiated. As soon as he tells Prabhupada, say yes, and he'll give you initiation. So this particular guy in New York was initiated. So then he asked Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, can you describe the love between, a boy and a girl here in the material world? You wouldn't believe what Srila Prabhupada answered. He said, there is no love here. I'm sorry, I'm afraid to joke. There is no love here in this material world. Real love is love for Krishna. That's how he answered him. Real love is love for Krishna. So in this material world, we are living a perverted reflection of the reality in the spiritual world. Second example also came from myself. I was transporting or taking His Holiness Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj back to his residence after he gave a class. I was driving and I asked a question, spiritual question, and the question had to do with our minds. Of course, the mind's connected with the senses. So I asked him, so in so many ways, right now I've forgotten the exact words that I used, but the idea of the question was, I was trying to find out the mind here in the material world and the mind of the spiritual world, how that works. And so when Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj got a sense of where I was going with the question, he interrupted and he said, the soul has a real mind. The soul has a real mind, which means the real mind is not the one that we're using here. This one is contaminated by material sense gratification that the senses want to indulge himself in. Now, speaking about that, Srila Prabhupada also says that when we in fact clean up our acts and become pure, then this same mind is in fact the mind of the soul. Because then it's acting exactly in the way that the mind of the soul would act. We say the mind is in a subtle body. Of course, we cannot touch anything subtle. And we certainly can't touch the soul either. We can't even see it, much less touch it. But Srila Prabhupada says that once a person's mind is purified, then he is thinking the same way that the mind of the soul would think. So this is how he put it. In fact, when he put it that way, there were two questions. One was from Mataji, BBC Mataji, and another one, I can't tell the person's voice. This was an audio recording. So they asked the same question, basically asking Srila Prabhupada to repeat what he had explained, because they couldn't think how a material mind and spiritual mind could merge like that. But Srila Prabhupada was saying it's not a merger necessarily. It's just that when something is purified, it is clean. The mind or the soul is clean. And when this material situation here, when we get away from the things that are contaminating, then the mind is acting at the same level like a pure devotee's mind is acting. So he explained that way. Now, in our situation, we are influenced by Mahamaya. But for pure devotees, they are influenced by Yoga Maya. It's the same Maya, but Mahamaya tests us to see whether we are really, really serious about connecting with Krishna. It brings Mahamaya exposes our faults, our lower nature, the things that we need to work on, so that we see it's there. When it gets exposed, then we'll be more determined to deal with it properly in a more serious way. Yoga Maya, on the other hand, makes the wonderful activities of the Lord come to fruition. Yoga Maya is the one that assists the Lord in such a way that the pastimes become very, very interesting, very sweet. And in one sense, you can say, and a very, very, and I'm using this word advisedly, okay? The word is deception. It makes the devotees think that it is something that it's not, but it is for Krishna's enjoyment. Mother Yashoda thinks that Krishna is her son, but Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Can't be anybody's son. Everything comes from him. Aham Savasa Bhava, he says in Bhagavad Gita. Everything comes from me. The source of the spiritual and material world are from Krishna. Well, what that's the case, then Mother Yashoda cannot, in reality, the way she was thinking, be the mother of Krishna. But Yogamaya had changed her mind and changed the mind of Nanda Maharaj to be the parents of Krishna, so that Krishna's pastimes would unfold in a wonderful way, so that they can express their love without doing it. When you look at it the other way, without doing that. And when the real situation comes and they understand, they means Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Mata understand that this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead they're dealing with. They will not relate to the Lord as a son. They will be more careful about the reverential aspect of serving the Lord. And that's not what the Lord wants. He wants loving relationship from parents, pure devotees who are playing the role of parents, because that's the reality. Nobody is equal to the Lord, nobody is above the Lord. But playing the role really with full belief that they are the parents. So in the same way, the gopis are also influenced by Yogamaya to think that Krishna is their loving, lovable personality. Not that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the one that's their paramount. So, Sri Prabhupada says in the purport, Yogamaya is the name of the internal potency. It is the Lord's potency, that forgetfulness that is necessary for the relationship of love to blossom nicely in its highest affair. That is what Yogamaya does. As a matter of fact, in the Rasa Lila, it's also said in the scripture that at night, and we'll get to the second one, which text 30, which describes this relationship of Parikya Ras a little bit more. And this is a very interesting one. So if a woman is married and she gets out of the house in the night and goes to meet the paramour, the husband may know that the wife is gone. Because they're in the house, they're gone. If you look at it from the material standpoint, but this is not material, but this is what our experience would be. Would expect that. So what did Yogamaya do? Somewhere in the scriptures that I read, it says that Yogamaya creates a double for all of the gopis. Creates a double means the gopis have left to join Krishna in the Vrindavan forest at night for their Rasa Lila and for their loving exchanges. And at the same time, Yogamaya has created someone looking like the gopis, each one with their husband at home. So this is what goes on. Now you say, oh, but why does Krishna is not it's not following anybody's law. He is the law. Everything is done by his will. So if he wants to do things straight, like in the case of Lord Ram, which how he lived his whole life like that, same Krishna, or he wants to sweeten for his own enjoyment, the way in which he goes about it, then that's his prerogative. That's his will. And he would do things the way he wants. But the great thing about it is very, very sweet, whatever he does. So Srila Prabhupada says that Yogamaya potency creates a spiritual sentiment in the minds of the damsels of Raj. They think that Krishna is their paramour. And then he says, we should not compare this to what we do here in the material world. Just like there is a real coin, there are some people who are criminal who also make coins that look like the real coin, but it's counterfeit. It doesn't have the same content, but on the outside it looks the same. So it looks like the gopis relate to Krishna like what we are kind of used to. But Srila Prabhupada says it has nothing to do with this material sexual psychology. Everything that exists here in the material world has a counterpart in the spiritual world. But the counterpart is, in fact, the real situation. And here we have a perverted situation. Just like in chapter 15 of Bhagavad Gita, the banyan tree is described upside down. The tree in the bank of a river, if you look through the river itself, you will see the reflection of a tree, but the reflection will have its top going down and the roots up. That is the situation in the material world. Not only that, you will not see a clear image of that tree. You will see some image that is not straight because the river is also flowing and a little rippling in there makes the image also ripple. It's like a wavy type image and it's also upside down. That is our situation in the material world. So in all situations that we are dealing with here, there is the real situation in the material world, and that includes amorous love. So there is, as a matter of fact, towards the end of the purport the Srila Prabhupada gave for Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text 1, he describes what we involve ourselves in here sexually as the sex life in a diseased condition. In a diseased condition. So that's why the restriction is there that, yes, when a man and a woman come together, the woman will get pregnant, and that is what it should be used for. Begetting for devotees, begetting souls that would continue the Krishna consciousness. Therefore, there's even a sanskara, a ritual that has to be done prior to mating. And certain times under certain conditions, they're also there. Certain spiritual holidays, lack of a better word, you do not choose those days to mate. And if you're very close to your spiritual master, you can even tell him that we are trying for a child so that you can get the blessings of the spiritual master. Therefore, this whole idea of relating sexually gets spiritualized. And that is the way in which devotees are supposed to approach this situation that's called mundane sex. What is in the material world is the opposite and the perverted reflection of what's in the spiritual world. Therefore, to go to the next one, Srila Prabhupada describes even more. The spiritual skies. There is the Vaikuntha planets. The Lord is worshipped as Narayan in reverence, awe and reverence. But in the above it, the topmost planet, Goloka Vrindavan or Krishna Loka, then different types of relationships, servant, that's there, but mostly the friend, the parental, and the conjugal affairs, those are present there. In the Vaikuntha planets, the affairs that's conjugal is between, it can't be between just anyone who is there. The Lord is, in fact, has a consort, and that is Lakshmi. Narayan with Lakshmi, and that's that. You're not Lakshmi, you're not in any kind of relationship like that with the Lord. But in the highest planet, Goloka Vrindavan, that is definitely possible, different types of affairs with the Lord. So there's a Swakiya Ras and the Parakiya Ras. The Parakiya Ras is like the boyfriend-girlfriend type of relationship. And the Swakiya Ras is like husband and wife type relationship. So the queens in Dwarka were in the 16,108 queens were in a Swakiya Ras with the Lord, and the gopis were in the Parakiya Ras with the Lord. And looking at the time, there's a pastime that I actually want to bring in, which is a very, very interesting pastime. And so maybe in a couple of minutes or so, I'll bring it up so that we can all hear and see. It's also involved a little bit with the rasa dance. So when Yogamaya makes it possible for the Lord and gopis to relate in a boyfriend-girlfriend situation at the highest loving affairs, then it is the sweetest, because the gopis then give their all, and it doesn't matter what kind of rules are there. Doesn't matter what kind of rules are there. They still involve themselves in relating to the Supreme Personality of Godhead without caring about those kind of rules. Whatever it is to relate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, if it makes him happy and it makes me able to express my love more as a gopi, then that's what I'll do. It doesn't matter what somebody else thinks about. That's what I'll do. So that is the situation, and the gopis then are able to express themselves wonderfully. There are actually 7 different levels of Krishna Prema, and then there's an 8th one, which is only owned by or exhibited by Srimati Radharani. The 4th level is called Raga. And Raga is that level of of love with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, especially exhibited by the gopis. They don't care what anyone thinks. As a matter of fact, Srimati Radharani made a statement in that Raga mellow of love by saying that I don't really care what people say about me when it comes to loving Krishna. I will do anything, and if they criticize me based on what the etiquette is, or based on what formalities are, or based on what the laws are, they can have all the accusations and dump it on my head, and I will wear it like a garland. I will wear all the parts of the garland and still go to Krishna. And still go to Krishna. That's how deep, that's how connected Srimati Radharani is with Krishna. And in many ways, he said the same thing. We've said same thing here in this Chaitanya Charitamrita to the 2 texts here. So, all right, I will go straight to this particular pastime that involves Ras dance. Swakiya Ras, we mentioned, that's a loving relationship between the queens and their husband Krishna. Parakiya Ras, the one with the gopis. And this is all made possible by Yogamaya. Chandranana Gopi, one of the 108 queens, Chandranana Gopi. And he's quite popular in the scriptures. Some people don't know about her, but that's the one Gopi that Shankachuda took when he was trying to pick the gopis who were dancing with Krishna, and Krishna finally killed him. The same Chandrananda Gopi told Srimati Radharani about a place called Siddha Ashram. Now, Siddha Ashram, Chandrananda Gopi was saying, there's so much to the place, so much spiritual benefit that you can get if you go there. And she proceeds to describe so many things, and Radharani is listening, the other gopis are listening. So she got them all interested, and then she went to Radharani and said, all right, I will visit Siddha Ashram. I want to go there. And the gopis all agreed, sure, we all will go there. So the arrangement was made, and of course, Krishna and Radha are always connected. Krishna was in Dwarka, but Krishna knew what was going on with the gopis. So then Krishna told the queens that I'm also feeling a sentiment of wanting to go to this particular place called Siddha Ashram. The queen says, oh, we'll go with you. Krishna says, all right. So then they set off at Dwarka to go to Siddha Ashram with Krishna. The gopis put Srimati Radharani in a palanquin, and they carried her. And we were all so happy, also from Vrindavan, where they headed for Siddha Ashram. So it got to a place where there would be the directions. It's such that at some point they'll merge as far as the directions go. But before that, the queen started talking so much about Krishna, and they also so much about they themselves praising each other. In the meantime, Krishna had let them know that actually the gopis will also be going to Siddha Ashram. So the queens got to know about it. And then Satyabhama, and then they started talking about, well, look at Rukmini, how beautiful she is. Krishna's first queen. How beautiful she is. We are queens. And she said so many things about how wonderful their positions are as queens. And the gopis, they're just cowherd girls. And Srimati Radharani, we heard she's beautiful, but look at Rukmini, how beautiful she is. And so she went on, and Krishna didn't say anything. And so it got to the point where they noticed the gopis coming. The gopis way outnumber the 16,108 queens, because the gopis are in their millions. There's that many. But still, they could see, the queens could see the gopis from a distance. They saw Srimati Radharani was in a palanquin. When they got closer and realized how beautiful Srimati Radharani was, especially Satyabhama, realized he looked at Srimati Radharani, and the beauty of Srimati Radharani so overwhelmed all the queens that they fainted. They literally fainted. Krishna had to bring them back to, just wake them up, basically. And so that was the first time they kept quiet about beauty. They never described beauty anymore. Srimati Radharani and the gopis finally met the queens. They were very, very cordial with each other. The queens had said that they had heard so many things about the gopis that Krishna tells them. It's nice, very nice to meet them. And the gopis were also very, very cordial, very wonderful and loving towards the queens. In fact, they wanted to serve each other. So, Srimati Radharani was given milk by Rukmini. Nice, warm milk gave to Srimati Radharani. Srimati Radharani drank the milk. Nice tasting. But then not long after that, the queens noticed that Krishna's feet had developed blisters under them. And they go, well, how is that possible? So Then Krishna described to them that Srimati Radharani is in my heart. And when Srimati Radharani drank the milk, it was a little too warm, but she didn't say anything. She just drank the milk. And the heat of the milk is what's affected me like this. So the queens were shocked. That was the first indication about the connection between Radha and Krishna showed to the queens. And then there was discussion about Siddha ashrams, because that's where they were going after all. Chandana Gopi and other gopis who had heard about it started talking about all kinds of things about Siddha ashram and comparing Siddha ashram to Vrindavan. It must be a nicer place than Vrindavan. Krishna didn't say anything, but he said, ask Radharani. So Radharani said, yes, we've heard wonderful things about Siddha ashram, but would we find Govardhan Hill in Siddha ashram? The answer is no. Is it Yamuna River in Siddha ashram? The answer is no. And then Srimati Radharani goes through detailed description about the wonderful service that Yamuna River and Govardhan Hill give at Vrindavan. And so by the time she was finished, and there's so much detail, this is a whole book now I'm trying to summarize. By the time she was finished, the queens again noticed that there was more devotion and there was a sweeter atmosphere than what they thought in Siddha ashram. But they were going to Siddha ashram, so they went there. And when they got there, then the queens requested that they requested the gopis, let's have, if you don't mind, the rasa dance here. And it will be wonderful. And so Radharani agreed, but again, they made some comparisons and Radharani had to tell them it's not like Vrindavan. They were saying that they thought that the rasa dance queens, gopis with Krishna would be better than the rasa dance in Vrindavan. But for time's sake, Krishna again didn't say anything. He said, you ask Radharani. And by the time Radharani was finished, the queens realized that no matter where, the rasa dance in Vrindavan is the one that's sweetest. They did have a rasa dance at Siddha ashram. It was nice. And then when they finished, then the queens invited the gopis to come to Dwarka with them. And the gopis agreed. So then Krishna, gopis, Srimati Radharani, and the queens returned to, the queens returned, but then the gopis went visiting Dwarka. And when they got there, Krishna arranged, and of course things can be done in a jiffy because Krishna is Krishna. He arranged for wonderful accommodation for all of the gopis. And so I'll end here anyway. It was a nice relationship. But see, these are the things, as Sri Prabhupada said, when you hear and get to understand more about the rasa dance and the loving relationships and how things are expressed in the rasa dance, there's so much humor in the dance also. One more thing to add to it. In the rasa dance, that the gopis are very intelligent. It's just every rasa dance, they come up with new songs. And some of the songs praise Krishna. Some of the songs chastise Krishna about being a butter thief. Some of the songs, they make all of that up. And then Krishna also responds to them. So sometimes the music, as wonderful as it is, becomes also an argument between Krishna and the gopis. And so this is all done in transcendental humor. And when a person hears this, as Srila Prabhupada says, we will not connect with mundane sexual affairs in the material world, because for us, the devotees have to remember this way. It is for pregnancy and for bringing a child, whereas the real spiritual loving connections, that's specifically to satisfy Krishna's senses. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you so much for such a wonderful class, and also the pastimes. The pastimes are so beautiful. And also thank you for stressing the point how we live in a very perverted world compared to this, what we see in the spiritual world. So thank you for stressing that point out. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to ask devotees, see if you have any questions, any comments. Please do make your point. Yes, Mother Gita, please go ahead, Mother.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances always to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for the deep class. So I have a few questions, if you don't mind. Firstly, where can I read this pastime? If you can share, because it's so beautiful.
All right.
Yeah, me too. It's such a beautiful pastime.
The pastime, yeah, when you really get more details about it. It's I'm getting a senior moment, which is not good at all. Garga Samhita. Garga Samhita.
Okay.
It's Garga Samhita. The queens meet the gopis.
Okay.
That is the title. Garga Samhita, the queens meet the gopis. And it's through Dhanavir Goswami. And anyway, that's it's for me. So if you search on the Dhanavir Goswami's book online, it's definitely there. The queens meet the gopis in Dwarka.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you
Mother
so
Gita,
much.
I think if you go to Dhanavir Swami's website, and I think it's linked to the RVC school, the one in Kansas, he has his books over there and you can purchase it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. So I have a few other questions. Do we have two minds, material and spiritual?
Okay, so here I am. I was trying to see if I could sneak the book and then show you how it looks like, but who's asked other questions? I just came up. Do we have two minds? Those are the questions that you've asked it in a different way that Malati and they were asking. So we have, of course, physical body, we have a subtle body, we know the mind is in the subtle body, and then we have a soul. So I'll go back to the way Bhakti Maharaj answered the question when I asked him. Not like that, but it said the soul has the real mind. So what happens is we are obviously, made from spiritual. The material is actually a connection from the spiritual. And so this mind is a mind that is contaminated. Now, if we think materially in terms of a gross way, then it becomes more difficult. In terms of a gross way. But remember, the mind is subtle. So it's not something you can hold. So really what it is there is a change in consciousness. That's all. There is a change in consciousness. It's not a matter of this being one here and then the other one there. There is a change in consciousness. We're dealing with something we cannot touch because it's subtle and the soul is also even higher than that. So the way Srila Prabhupada described it, and that's all I can do is repeat it, is when there's change in consciousness from contaminated to pure, then you're basically using the mind of the soul. So it's not like there's one. I mean, it's not like there's two. There's a matter of contamination and purity. Those are the two things that are there. Again, we're dealing with subtle situations. A change of consciousness puts us with the spiritual or the real mind. Does that help a little bit, or maybe you got to find another way?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. I am going to go back and listen to this class again and make some notes because, seniors, we forget very easily. So the next question is, what I have heard is that when a person is purified and is ready to go back to Godhead, they leave behind the subtle body, which means leave behind the soul. Leave behind the mind. So in that case, does that mean that the soul travels with the super soul in spiritual body to the spiritual world minus the mind, even though it may be the mind of the soul?
What happens is, based on how Srila Prabhupada answered the question, it is in fact the mind of the soul or the situation becomes a situation where that person will not think in a material, perverted way anymore. So now they are situated the way the soul reasons. When we're in the material world is when the contamination comes. Again, I have to say we're dealing with several things here. It's just a change of consciousness. But that person is basically, the closest to a material description of it is the person is, it's like the door to material perversion from the mind, the material mind is shut. That's how the mind, the material mind gets destroyed. It's shut. Now the soul will not think of things in terms of materialism anymore. And now we're situated in our way things used to be in the spiritual world. Does that help? Or again, I can find another way to describe this.
All I can say is wow. Thank you for the
The soul
thank
doesn't
you.
think. That's why
Thank
Papa had
you.
explained it 3 times. He said it once. He says it's actually a change of consciousness. That's it. Purity means I'm not doing things material anymore, which also means when Shiva Prabhupada was here, even though we saw a physical body, he was reasoning through everything like his, like the soul and the spiritual world would do because he was pure. Even though he came down to the level of second class in order to deal with devotees and so on, but the whole time, as far as his mind was concerned and the role that he was playing was concerned, he reasoned with a pure mind, which means he would reason just like the soul's mind is in the spiritual world. The activities may be slightly different because of the arena of the material world and the spiritual world, but he reasoned in a pure way the whole time. So he never used a material mind in terms of how it works. He was using basically, he never got contaminated by the by things here at the level of the soul. Sorry, at the level of the material mind, what we're used to here. He never reasoned things that way. That's another way to put it. He was just giving mercy and helping us. But the whole time, his mind was not contaminated. So pure devotees' minds don't get contaminated by the material world stuff. They just don't. Sukadeva Goswami, they're all like that. But this is subtle now. It's subtle. It's just a change. And they never allowed the mind to be materially contaminated like that. And Sri Prabhupada was playing the role of a spiritual master. So he was teaching and he was also showing by example. But his mind was pure the whole time.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Okay. Any other questions?
If I can share something, Mother Gita, you asked a very important question, because I remember when I was hosting Chandramali Swami's class on Tuesday morning, one of his disciples asked a similar question, and I had to piggyback on it. And I was only able to make one sentence of his notes of his class, because the more I started typing, the more I was missing his points out. But the one sentence that I made, Mataji, is Maharaj said, the mind is the blueprint of what one's body takes in the next life by the influence of the material energy.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Is what Maharaj said. So what Maharaj was saying, because one of us asked, okay, then what happens to the mind? He says, well, the more the mind is purified, that determines the next life they take. So if the mind is very much engaged in the material energy, then that determines the next life. So he said and then he said, now interestingly, Maharaj says, but that doesn't apply to devotees, is what he says, because devotees always are reminded about the holy name at all the time, close to the time of death, so that the mind is always being reminded of Krishna, 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 so that their next birth is perfected, like higher. That's what he said.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. That's
Because,
also
Mother,
another
I had
angle.
that same question, Mother. I had the same question because we were talking about the mind and the body and the soul in that Tuesday class. So he says that, but I remember him saying it doesn't apply to devotees because we are so fortunate that we have the holy name. So the more we hear and we are amongst devotees association, and then he mentioned chanting, and no, I'm sorry, he mentioned hearing, and chanting and association. But he said that that will help, that blueprint will actually of the mind will determine our next life, which will be higher, back to the Lord, because the mind, because we are training our minds right now to be away from the material energy. But I liked how he said it's the blueprint, so I thought I would share that with you, Mother Geeta. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it is the blueprint because the soul takes, I mean, it's taken by the mind to the next body, to the subtle body, which includes the mind. And of course, I mean, we have so many examples are there to show it. Whatever we learn in previous lives, we can, if we take a body that can, in fact, make that property or whatever thing that we have acquired come out, then we can exhibit that. And we're talking particularly about what devotees, I mean, people normally call talent. Hmm? Talent is also something learned from somebody who's very, very proficient. A small 5, 6 year old plays piano like anything. No, in the previous life, they'll actually master doing it. And since it is in their mind, it's in their consciousness like that, then the next life, when the soul is transported by the mind, that impression of the ability is also there. So then if he takes a human body, then they're able to express themselves, in that way. In that way, that's what we call talent. And the negative part of it is if they experience something really, really terrible in the previous life, then that also imprints in the mind and it goes to the next body. The mind is there, and those things are still there. And then it comes to phobias. And some people are afraid of water because they may have drowned in one particular lifetime. So now they're very, 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 afraid of water like that. Mm. But when all of these material things are purified, then we are in that state of just the spiritual thinking only. Yes, and thank you for bringing up the situation, the description given by Sri Chandamali Swami. Not only the mind of blueprint, but also, devotees are the ones that have the brush, the spiritual brush to clean up the contamination of the mind, if we can look at it that way. We have the opportunity to get it cleaned. And so then we can be in our original clean mind, which is the mind of the soul. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. And Debbie Prabhu put a chat saying thank you for a nice class, Pariksit Prabhu. And if you have a question, you can definitely ask to Debbie if you have a question.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh,
Yes.
yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I didn't know I saw the little hand raise sign. Thank
If
you.
you go to reactions, I think if you see on the bottom of the screen where it says
Oh, I
reactions,
see.
you
Okay.
press it and there's a
But-
raised hand there. You can do that.
Okay. Okay.
But
Thank
yeah,
you.
we can hear you, Debbie. Go ahead.
But we can, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. First, Pariksit Prabhu, thank you so much for such a wonderful class. I really,
Krishna's
really
mercy.
enjoyed it.
Guru's mercy. Mhm.
And Gita Devi Prabhu, great questions because that helped me too, listening to those questions. So the way that you explained that Krishna created the doubles in the mind. Now
Yoga Maya created the doubles. Yeah.
Yoga Maya. I
Mhm.
didn't really understand Yoga Maya before. And now I think, I'm getting a little inkling of what Yoga Maya is. And it's the spiritual sense versus the material sense of doing things.
Yes.
And I have a better understanding of that. But anyway, a great class, and I just wanted to thank you so much. Very enlivening.
Krishna's mercy, Guru's mercy. So we pray to the Lord and the Lord's pure devotees to help us to preach. So I just see myself as just transmitting what they use my mind to transmit. Hare Krishna. So the credit goes to them, actually.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you. And we can definitely continue that discussion this Sunday when we meet. That's so much fun.
Yes.
Thank you.
Prashadam time we could talk
Oh,
more.
yeah. So much more fun. We sit and we eat and we talk.
About Krishna, yep.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Dear Krishna, you had your hand up, Prabhu. And do you want to ask a question? And then you took it down.
The answer is yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All praise to Srila Prabhupada. It was such a beautiful class that I thought I will clarify a few things or try to share something, and then I realized I won't be able to. I won't. I was losing the words. So thank you for the wonderful class. It was the thing I wanted to share in reference to spiritual senses versus material senses that we sometimes think about. There is a pastime of Gop Kumar that comes in Brihad Bhagavatam. So I was listening to one class a few days back, and it was mentioned that when Gop Kumar he reached Golok Vrindavan, it was nothing.
Yeah, you're talking about what Brihad Bhagavatamrita?
Brihad Bhagavatamrita with from by Srila Sanatana Goswami.
Okay. So it's Gopakumar you're talking about. Okay, go ahead. I just wanted to be sure.
Yeah. So for like Mataji was saying, for devotees it is not much different. They will not feel much difference whenever we will be able to go to spiritual world. Just like Gokumar, when he went to Golok Vrindavan, he was seeing, it's the same tree, same road, same village, similar village that he have seen in the material world. But he couldn't, and he could see the Gopas, Gopis, Mata Yashoda there, but he couldn't touch them. So I'm not able to explain the whole story. I don't remember what happened in the end, but then by mercy, Krishna came or something happened, and then he was able to realize the spiritual, part of it.
But, I would like to know that spiritual part because I know we have after me before he got to the spiritual world. When he went to Vaikuntha planets and so on. That was also very interesting. So
very interesting way. So the senses, like they are very, very mystical especially for the devotees. We will not feel much difference there. We are already on that path. So,
but the one thing you said that didn't surprise me, although it crystallized something, but the reason it didn't surprise me was that we are told that Vrindavan in India is a replica of what the Vrindavan in the spiritual world. Of course, with material eyes, when you go to Vrindavan with material eyes, we don't really see that replica that is explained. But if Gopakumar could see that, as a replica, then he should see the same roads, the same, like that when he goes to the in the spiritual world. So that part of it made sense to me. It's the word replica that's what it reminded me about it.
The Vrindavan that we are not able to see from our material eyes, that which is aprakat, unmanifested Vrindavan, that is always there. Yes, bro. Replica. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Even though sometimes we're not able to tell.
Nitukupa has a very nice question.
Oh,
he said, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, wonderful class. Thank you. How do we know how do we know if one is under the influence of Mahamaya or Yogamaya? Excellent question.
When we are doing things against the instruction of a spiritual master, Mahamaya. Without a doubt. We do things against the spiritual instructions of a bona fide spiritual master, then we are in Mahamaya. Mahamaya is influencing us. But Mahamaya is influencing us by bringing out the faults that we have so that we can see that and correct that before we leave this body. Yogamaya, well, the pastimes of the Lord, the Yogamaya is actually one that influences pure devotees. Now, if we get to the pure devotee level, we can have Yogamaya influence. But as long as we are getting purified, then basically we are under Mahamaya working us to the point where we can correct our mistakes. That's where we're sitting now because we're not pure yet. Yogamaya works on pure devotees only.
So, which means Mahamaya is not a bad person.
Mahamaya has never been a bad person.
That's what I just wanted to just make that, just to, clarify. Okay.
Sometimes devotees are saying Maya just makes it so difficult. Maya, for us, and that way, then they think the Maya is bad. Because when they say Maya, they mean Mahamaya. Maya is bad. But actually, Maya is pointing out, so you want to go to the spiritual world, but you cannot go with this kind of dirt on your mind. Therefore, here is the dirt. The dirt, work on it and clean it up. And boy, one of the ways to clean up that is to hear and to hear and to hear. Hearing is where the instruction comes from. Chanting is the Yugadam, and that says, Dear Krishna, dear energy of Krishna, Radha, please engage me in devotional service to you, because that's what's done in the spiritual world. We're going back to the way of life. We're practicing it here in the material world so we can fit in the spiritual world. But while we're here, because we have lived so many lifetimes and carry the impression of negativity in our mind from one lifetime to another through the mind, because the mind goes with us and all the impressions go with us, then Mahamaya begins to expose those things. And the rules are also to help us to stay away from the negative things that we used to do. Four regulated principles there. And for lack of a better way to put it, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, since it's repeated so much, it also, from even looking at it from a mundane standpoint, the way we know things here, it advertises Krishna to us over and over again. If you repeat Krishna, 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 you will remember Krishna, because the Mahamantra is making you repeat Krishna. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So then it makes the mind more Krishna conscious. In that way, so the purification is coming, thinking about Krishna. And then Mahamaya is also saying, these are the things that you need to work on to remove from your life so you can become purer. So you receive the mercy of the Lord. Hare Krishna.
I hope that helped, Nitukuma. That's a very nice question.
Yeah, thank you so much, Prabhuji. Yeah, that was wonderful. Hare Krishna. Yeah, thank you.
Hare Krishna. Very nice question. In fact, I was just reading a quote here, if I can share this quickly, by Shiv Prabhupada. Shiv Prabhupada says that Yogamaya manages the spiritual world, Mahamaya manages the material world.
Yep. In one sentence.
In one sentence, Prabhupada always makes it so simple and easy. I mean, seriously. Hare Krishna. How, I'm just thinking how speaking about the mind, our minds are such a rascal, right? We try to overanalyze until it gets paralyzed, right? And Shri Prabhupada says it's so simple in one sentence.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So it's Maya. It's Maya, period. It's like two sides of the same coin. Mahamaya and Yogamaya, heads, tails. Mahamaya, that's head side is turned to the spiritual, tail side is turned to the material, but it's the same Maya.
I like this, overanalyze and get paralyzed.
Sometimes we need to do that just to understand stuff. Hare Krishna.
And then once we check with Prabhupada, he just says, forget the analysis paralysis. This is the answer. So simple. Yeah. Thank you. Very nice question, Nitugopal. Really nice question. Thank you. Again, we need such, simple questions to bring us to the simple minds and not make it so complicated. But yeah, thank you. Any other questions from devotees before we end this class? Any questions, any comment? This is such nice discussion. I really, really love discussions like this. And we definitely encourage devotees to please bring your questions, when we meet in person. Sunday program, Sunday prasadam time, sit and talk while prasadam. It's such an enlivening time to use that time to have Krishna Katha, discussing Krishna consciousness, whenever we come and see each other. So please, we look forward to that, and we continue to bring that mood even when we see each other and converse and have sadhu sangha. So thank you all for joining us, and we hope that you have a wonderful week, and thank you for such a wonderful class with such really amazing points and discussion. Vanchakaplibhyascha, Kripasindhavevcha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai. Mahamaya is helping us.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.